Today, I'm going to explain how you overcome the top 3 obstacles to starting your very own farm in 2025. Let's talk about land. So right now, we are standing on a couple acres that is near where we live, but this is owned by a neighbor of ours. And this is an example of a free lease that we've gotten. Now, this one connects to our home farm, so it was a little easier to get because our neighbors know that we live beside them. They know us really well. And even though it's a free lease, they know that we want to take care of the property because it connects to ours. But a couple years ago, when we started our farm, we started on a piece of property that was connected to 100 acres a developer had just purchased. And he had a guy that would come and cut hay, but there was about 7 acres that they couldn't get their tractor on. So what we did was we offered to graze the land in exchange for keeping it clean. And we created an indefinite lease that would just be ended with a 30-day notice by either party. But it's been about 5 years now, and we still have that lease, and it's a free lease. And we've done this over and over. And the secret to getting a free lease on a piece of property, in my opinion, is taking every disadvantage to your advantage. So, on that piece of property, the hill was super sloped, there was not a lot of fence, and there was no access to water. So we had to overcome each one of those disadvantages, but we came out with the advantage of a free lease on that piece of property. The key here is to remember taking every disadvantage to your advantage. So look around at pieces of property that look underutilized, overgrown, and ask yourself, is there any reason cattle couldn't run here? And if there's not, you might be able to get a free or a cheap lease there. So keep that in mind. Number two is product. And so when you're thinking about farming, you need to think about the product. And the key here is thinking with the end in mind. So when we started, we knew we wanted to raise cattle, but that's all we knew. So we purchased the same kind of cattle everybody has around here. And it wasn't until we had been grazing them for some time that we realized we wanted to have the cattle processed for beef and sell directly to the customer. And when we decided that, we ended up having to totally sell the cattle we had and buy a new herd of a different breed that would work better for that purpose. And that's a good example where if we would have thought with the end in mind, we would not have made that mistake. So whatever product it is you want to be farming, make sure you think about how you plan to sell that and make sure that fits in your business plan. Number 3 is time. And if you're like me, you may have a full-time job and a family to take care of. So you can't just totally start full-time farming right away. And you're gonna have to figure out how to build a strategy so that you don't spend all your time on the farm and you don't have time for your family or work. So what we found success with goes as follows. 1 day a week to create our paddocks, 1 hour every other day to move our cattle, and 10 minutes a day to check on the cattle. The way this works for us is the first half of Saturdays, we go ahead and we put all of our paddocks out for the week. We rotationally graze our cattle. Then, once every other day, we move the cattle to the next paddock, and then we pack up the paddock behind them. This really doesn't take a whole hour, but it's best to budget for that and have extra time left over, as opposed to the other route, right? And finally, every day that we don't move our cattle, we need to make sure that we have our eyes on them. And that is where this little drone comes in handy. So I purchased this drone for a couple $100 on sale at Sam's Club. This is the cheapest DJI drone you can get. But it does an amazing job when it comes to counting cattle and making sure they have water. So some days on my other leased property, I'll just pull up on the road beside there, take the drone up off of my car, count the cows, bring it back. But nonetheless, it usually takes about 10 minutes a day. And that's how we're able to keep up our farming and also keep up our responsibilities at home and at work. And finally, and most importantly, make sure you're subscribed to this YouTube channel, because this year we are starting on a brand new farm and we're going to be going through all of these points and documenting in real time how we overcome each of these obstacles in the way of us starting a new farm. So I believe with a little creativity, anybody can do it. You don't have to own the land. You can be very creative about the product you start with, and if you build a good strategy, I believe you can do it in a timely manner. Thank you for watching, and make sure you're subscribed.